Go.
Namaskar. We once again welcome you on our weekly edition of Ozu Dorkot series. With the blessings of Mata Rabhavani, we are celebrating the 4th centennial celebration this year. Today we are going to talk about hypertension, stress, and our cardiac wellness. Friends, this wellness initiative this time is being supported by Uprazer. It's the India's largest pharmaceutical company in HIV, oncology, and hepatitis drugs. Friends, as you are aware that high blood pressure is ranked as the third most important risk factor for attribution burden on disease in South Asia. Hypertension extracts a substantial public health burden on the cardiovascular health status of the healthcare system in India. Hypertension is directly responsible for 7% of overall stroke deaths and 24% of coronary heart disease deaths in India. The WHO rate and hypertension is one of the most important cause of premature deaths worldwide. To discuss this today, we have Dr. Pawan Joshi with us. I will request Mr. Rahul Manohari to introduce Dr. Saab to the audience.
Namaskar. Dr. Pawan Joshi from Raghunath Srinagar, a very well-known cardiologist. Dr. Joshi currently practices at Metro Hospital and Heart Institute. He is basically MBBS from Rani Durgavati Vishwavidyalaya. Dr. Joshi completed his MD from Jivaji University, Gwalior in 2002. Dr. done his DNB in cardiology from Bhadra Hospital. I'll request Dr. Joshi to take it over from here and start the presentation.
Hello,
am I audible? Please.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Hello, friends, everyone who is here online. As we have already, as Pankaj has very rightly introduced the topic, I'll be taking on hypertension. I am a senior consultant at Metro Noida and head of interventional cardiology at Lajpat Nagar, Delhi. And day in and day out, I see so many patients, young patients these days in their 20s, 30s, 40s, having very anxiety, stress, and related hypertension. Blood pressures going from 140, 150, 160 with a diastolic blood pressure 100, 110. It's very common. This is something we never used to see when we were doing MBBS or MD around 15, 20 years back. So something has changed in our society in the last 2 decades. And since hypertension, as Pankaj has rightly said, is a major killer, WHO classifies it as a major killer, a bigger risk factor for strokes, for coronary artery disease, for peripheral arterial disease, for kidney disease, for eye issues, retinopathies and all that. So this is a topic that somehow escapes attention. Most of the people will talk about coronary artery disease. I as a cardiologist will think about angioplasties, pacemakers and all that. But the basic issue is why all these things are happening, especially in the urban culture that we live and the stress that every day all of us are exposed to. So a lot of young people, the epidemic of the the gamut of the cardiovascular diseases, the strokes and all that is related to hypertension. And it is a time to basically address the elephant in the room, the hypertension per se. So today I will be doing a presentation first to just make you understand where we are going, what the basic issue is medically and from a layman point of view. And then we will discuss any queries that whatever the audience may have from their perspective. So I'll just start with this presentation of mine. Please minimize this. Is it okay?
Yes, it is fine, Dr. Saab. You just need to increase the this.
Is it okay?
Yes.
And now it's fine?
Yes, it is fine.
Yeah. So friends, we'll be starting. So we'll be discussing hypertension, stress, and cardiac wellness. So statistically 80 million cases in United States worldwide, 1 billion cases worldwide, and most common reversible risk factor. This is very important statement for myocardial infarction, that is heart attack, stroke, that is brain paralysis or brain stroke, heart failure, atrial fibrillation, that is arrhythmias of the heart, aortic dissection, that means rupture of the major trunk, major artery which goes from the heart to the different parts of the body. PAD means peripheral arterial disease, the legs, the arteries of the legs, and cognitive decline means decrease in the normal mental functioning of the patient. So all these things are basically related to one, the base root of all these diseases is hypertension. It causes 2/3 of all the brain attacks that we see, especially in the elderly above 65, 70 years of age, and 50% of the heart attacks, out of which the majority of the heart attacks in the last 2 decades are in very young age group, 30 to 50-year age group. As I said previously, we used not to see heart attacks before 50 or 55, around two decades back. Now, there's an epidemic of the disease where a father is bringing his son to our emergency and we are doing primary angioplasties. So 50% of those heart attacks are occurring because of hypertension only. This is a very important statement. There are 9.4 million deaths each year because of hypertension. 50% of these patients, hypertensive patients, have a systolic blood pressure of more than 140 by 90. And more importantly, 50% of the patients have a pre-hypertension. Pre-hypertension means the blood pressure is below 140/90. That means a lot of, just as we see COVID asymptomatic patients these days, similarly, there are asymptomatic hypertensive patients roaming around in the society, having BPs of 138/88, which almost touches the criteria for judging them as hypertensive, but they are not quite. And this disease has developed, demographically, it has also changed. Last 40 years, this disease has gone from US, Europe, Australia, and has gone towards South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. That is the Asian and the African subcontinent, involving the people with the lower socioeconomic status and younger people and people on the edges of the society, putting them more at a greater health as well as economic burden. So what are the issues basically we are discussing? Person doesn't know, first of all, he neglects himself. Bhai, mujhe kuch nahi hai, main bilkul theek. There is a delay in diagnosis because of this very reason. So a few will come with a heart attack directly to the emergency, then we'll come to know that he has a hypertension. Some of them will come with a stroke, paralysis at the age of 45, 46. They never knew they had a hypertension. Once we see the BP on day 1, BP is 170, 120. There is under treatment or delayed treatment in these patients. At the same time, there's a pill burden. Some people who are already diabetics in late 40s or 50s, they try to avoid, ek dawai aur khani padegi, dusri dawai aur khani. So especially in diabetics or those with a cholesterol issue are already on 1 or 2 medications, they try to just do away with this. Hame dawai nahi khani. So they'll come to our OPDs and say, Doctor Sahab, maine kiya tha ghar mein major, 140, 41, 42 hi hai. Or niche bhi 88 hai. So they try to deceive themselves, and in the end they end up on the facing front. Even when controlled, 30% of these patients, that means those patients who have a blood pressure less than 140 even, they develop stroke, heart attack and heart failure. In other words, even rigorous control is more important. Even mild to moderate control of the blood pressure is not our goal. We should have a very rigorous control of blood pressure. So the definition of the blood pressure is an office BP. Office BP means clinic BP of more than 140/90. And the prevalence of blood pressure as such, age-wise, increases after 30 years of age. There have been studies, international studies, which have shown that blood pressure, any blood pressure more than 110/80 and onwards puts you at a cardiovascular disease risk. In other words, the risk is much less between 110 and 140. But subsequently, even once you are minimizing blood pressure below 140, you have to get it as close to 120, 125, especially in young patients. In less than 50-year age group, women have very low prevalence. They are less prone to developing blood pressure. However, after menopause, it starts increasing more than men. So that at 75 to 80 years of age, almost 90% of the population will have a blood pressure problem. In other words, blood pressure is a process of aging too. If you are having blood pressure at 60, 65, 70, a lot of patients come, they say, we have developed blood pressure now, and they take it as a disease. It is not a disease. It is basically a process of aging, just like a male will have a prostatic problem at some point down the line after 60. A female can have a uterine or an endometrial or a breast tissue after 60, 65 years of age. Similarly, hypertension is an issue which can develop because of aging. At 75 years of age, 80 years of age, it is normal to have blood pressure. And medicines that we have these days, they are those medicines which have very least side effects. If you go on take them for another 40 years, 50 years, they are not going to have as many side effects, not nearly negligible side effects. So there is no point in avoiding and identifying yourself as a hypertensive. Identify, understand your disease, start treatment early, and take treatment till the time doctor advises, and be on the safer side. 90% have no single reversible cause. That is, hypertension is divided into two classes. One is where we cannot find the cause. It is genetic or it is hereditary in nature. In only 5 to 10% cases, there is a cause, like a thyroid problem or a parathyroid problem or an adrenal gland tumor or a renal kidney issue or a diabetes, uncontrolled diabetes with obesity. In 90% of the cases, however, young patients about 35, 40 having blood pressure, some family history, and rest is all genetic and the stress-related predisposition. So how do we grade? Normal blood pressure is, as I said, less than 120 by 980. And pre-hypertension is the borderline or the gray zone, 120 oblique to 139 in the systolic and 80 to 89 in the diastolic. Stage 1, 140 to 159 oblique 90 to 99. Stage 2, the moderate hypertension, 160 to 179 systolic oblique 90 to 99 diastolic. Stage 3, the severe hypertension, more than 180 systolic and more than 110 diastolic. These are the patients who land in emergency. And there's a term called as isolated systolic hypertension, usually a disease of elderly people who have a higher systolic blood pressure, but a near normal diastolic blood pressure. Now here I would like to mention, on the point of diagnosis, when a new patient comes to our OPDs, mild to moderate hypertension patients need a revisit. That means the younger patient, even if he comes with a blood pressure of 165 oblique 95, we would always try to scan these patients. Do they have genuine hypertension? It is not that ek reading aa gayi ghar pe 160, 170, you become a hyper. No, it's not like. It is only stage 3 hypertension where we are straight away sure that this patient is a hypertensive. In stage 1 and stage 2, especially in young patients, we need further analysis. We do some basic tests. Then these days we do an instrument that is called as ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. Once the patient is consistently after treatment or on some mild anxiolytic treatment showing still a higher blood pressure on ABPM, that is ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, with some wrong tests, kidney issues or diabetes, only then we will classify them as hypertensive. Otherwise, we'll leave them to non-pharmacological, non-drug treatment and see that they may improve. So this discretion is very important, because otherwise we'll start labeling on only even those young patients who don't have a blood pressure, who have only a stress-induced lifestyle issue, which has led to this problem. We'll classify them also as hypertensive. So what are the symptoms? What a person must know? So there are no symptoms at all in a majority of the patients. They may be asymptomatic, and suddenly they are in a meeting somewhere or in a party or a doctor friend, and he casually sees their blood pressure and says, yeah, your blood pressure is 160 by 95. And the person never knew that he has a blood pressure. Some people may have a headache, anxiety, sleeping problems, coughing, angina, mild chest discomfort, blurring of vision, generalized fatiguability, thakavat ho rahi hai, dizziness, pasina aa raha hai, nausea, vomiting, palpitations and difficult breathing, chest congestion, nose bleeds or subconjunctival hemorrhages, small bleeding spots in the conjunctiva, some limb weaknesses, focal neurological deficits, difficulty in memory, calculation or cognitive decline. The patient has altered mentation, confused रहते हैं, सवेरे उठते हैं नींद से कहते हैं डॉक्टर साहब मैं confused हूँ, मैं समझ नहीं आ रहा, मैं काम पहले ठीक से कर रहा, I'm not able to concentrate on my career. Somebody says I'm not able to concentrate on my studies, I'm not able to do basic calculations, mathematics, and there is some limb weakness, हाथ पैर में दर्द रहता है. So what are the BP determinants in our everyday life? In young adults, nicotine increases blood pressure by 10 to 12 millimeter, 20 millimeter mercury. Moderate alcohol generally lessens BP because it causes vasodilatation, it dilates the arteries. So it may generally cause a lower BP than teetotalers. Teetotalers are those who don't take it all. So up to 1.5 drink, it may lessen the blood pressure. However, heavy drinkers, use severe alcohol abuse, there will be more blood pressure. Caffeine in a small quantity can cause a transient ride. If you had a cup of coffee for the next half an hour, you will have a higher blood pressure, which will then progressively decline. Diet sodas increase blood pressure. Physical inactivity, diabetes increases blood pressure. In pregnancy, in the third trimester, is a condition called as preeclampsia, which can increase the blood pressure. There is increase with BMI. Once there is weight gain, for every 8 to 10 kg increase in weight gain, there will be a 5 to 7 millimeter increase in blood pressure. This has been seen in different studies. For lack of exercise, once you're not exercising again, in an obese person, the blood pressure will tend to rise by 4 to 5 millimeters. And the reverse will happen once you lose weight and once there's a decrease in BMI. The role of, in some cases, however, the role of weight loss is not very well correlated with hypertension. That means you may lose weight, but you may not lose your blood pressure. However, if you're a diabetic or you have a bad cholesterol and you start losing weight, you will definitely benefit once on your blood pressure. The most important thing of all, increased sodium intake increases the blood pressure. This is universally seen. I will come to the quantity of sodium we should be taking subsequently. But as a thumb rule, if you're taking salt, more salt after 30, 35 years of age, you are putting yourself at grave risk of developing hypertension in the next 20, 25 years, even if you don't have a family history of a father or mother or grandmother. At the same time, potassium decreases. Now, potassium is present in fruits, in bananas, in coconut water, in all fruits that we consume in a day-to-day activity. That potassium decreases the blood pressure. Now, sometimes we see patients with BP spikes. This generally happens in caffeine abuse, in NSAIDs. NSAIDs means painkillers. You had an injury, you have been taking painkillers for 5 days, 7 days, and suddenly you see your BP has shot up after 5 days. You never had this problem. In chronic kidney disease, CKD, cocaine abuse, collagen vascular disorders, which are rare autoimmune disorders, they can have increased sudden rise in blood pressure. Overactive adrenals that I've already discussed, the tumors of the adrenal glands. Pregnancy in third trimester. Scleroderma, again a collagen vascular disorder. Smoking, stress, and thyroid disorders. So even stress, it is very common for us to see in our cardiac emergencies, patients, young patients coming with high blood pressure, 160, 110, having been advised medical therapy by somebody from outside, echo is done, ECG is done, TMT is done, preparing for coronary angiography. So we should not be panicking. We should be understanding that this is a disease process. It needs to be taken at that value. It's a young patient. We should analyze, first of all, and then see how much is the component of stress. That is the purpose of this topic today. We have to delineate hypertension from stress. They are not two different things. They two are the same. And stress may transiently put you at a risk of hypertension when you may not be hypertensive, and which will get subsequently relieved when you take care of that problem. So primary hypertension or essential hypertension is seen in 90% of the cases. It's a genetic heritable disorder, mutations in 20 salt genes in our body. So primary reason in these patients, there is a defective kidney salt excretion and blood vessel cell regulation, that is brain vessels, heart vessels, eye vessels. They may be regulated in an abnormal way. Now this is genetic. You cannot do anything about this. Only your lifestyle can delay the time of developing this disease, or it can decrease the subsequent intensity in your life. Then coming to the young patients, systolic hypertension is not unknown in teenagers and adults, seen in 17 to 25-year-olds. They may have abnormally stiff aorta or overactive nervous system as compared to others. Some people we come to the OPDs and they say, घबराहट होती है, tremors होते हैं, पसीना आता है. So these are people who have been blessed with that kind of a syndrome. They have an overactive nerve, overactive milieu in the body, and they tend to have hypertension. So we have to put them away from the rest of the 98, 99% population who will not present like this. Predisposes to adult hypertension. These are the people who subsequently in their 30s and 40s will develop hypertension. So we have to see these patients and understand at an early age that these are at high risk. So we have to advise lifestyle to these patients. Diastolic hypertension is in middle age is the hypertension that we see normally in all of us in 30s, 40s, 50s. They will develop this problem. There's an isolated diastolic, that is the lower blood pressure increase. Sometimes systolic blood pressure also increases. It is called as classical essential hypertension. It's most common in males, and it increases subsequently the volume and the salt retention in the body. And there is vessel constriction in all these patients. The third term that I already discussed, elderly people more than 55 having only the systolic, the upper wala jo portion of that blood pressure, that is raised more than 140. That diastolic stays 90 or below. It is seen usually in females and presents with heart failure. Heart is normal functioning, but once the systolic blood pressure rises, there is a diastolic heart failure with a normal pumping heart. And people with pre-hypertension, that is those with less than 140/90, usually develop this later in life, especially among females. Now, coming to the stress and anxiety part, what does stress and anxiety do to all of us? This increases the systolic blood pressure by increasing the heart rate. Once you increase the heart rate, there's increased pumping and forceful pumping of the heart. There will be increase in the systolic blood pressure. And increase diastolic blood pressure by increasing the vessel tone. The peripheral vessels in our body, they constrict, वो narrow हो जाती है peripheral vessels. उसके कारण heart पे load पड़ता है. So the diastolic blood pressure, the lower blood pressure increases. Associated obesity is there, sedentary lifestyle, diabetes, obstructive sleep apnea syndrome, and metabolic syndrome, and chronic kidney disease. Now, what is metabolic syndrome? We also call it as the syndrome X medically. So this is a condition which is seen in a majority of the patients in our country between 30 and 50 years of age, people with abnormal weights, obesity with a borderline BMI more than 30, and a waist hip ratio altered with a waist dia of around 40 inches in male, more than 35 inches in female, or blood pressure more than 135/85, triglycerides more than 150, and a fasting sugar more than 110. These are the patients. So every time some of us goes for an executive health checkup, you should see all these things. You should see what your waist hip ratio is, what your triglyceride is, what is your sugar, what is your weight, what is your BMI. So this will put you in the metabolic syndrome. If you are in a metabolic syndrome, then unfortunately you are in that zone where you can have a subsequent diabetes, you can have an altered chronic vascular disease, or you can have hypertension in later years. Now, obstructive sleep apnea. This is a neurogenic cause, that is the nervous system related cause of hypertension. In obese patients and otherwise also, there is neurogenic hypertension which leads to increased urine catecholamines. In the night, the patients, they tend to snore, kharate lete hain. There is less oxygen gets collected in the body. There is arterial desaturation. Oxygen level slightly is lesser. They are not able to assimilate as much oxygen because of snoring. So in the early morning hours, there is lesser oxygen in the blood. There is altered mentation, confusion hota hai, increased nerve activity, frequent sleep arousals at night. रात को सोते हैं, बार-बार उठते हैं. Transiently 5-10 minute के लिए they wake up, then again they sleep, then again kharate se neend tootti, again they wake up. So they don't get sound sleep. Now you see, medically it is very important to have a proper night dip of blood pressure. That means BP should fall during night, less than 110. It will happen only when you have a sound sleep, which we call as slow rhythm of the sleep. Once you go into the slow, deep rhythm of the sleep, then your BP will fall. Once the BP will fall, you will be refreshed more in the morning. You will get more oxygen for your body. You will have more rest, and that stress part will get alleviated. So fragmented sleep is an issue. Now this puts patient at an increased risk of abnormal heart rate and atrial fibrillation, the abnormal rhythm of the heart, arrhythmias, and brain stroke subsequently. Now, role of salt in kidneys, as already mentioned by me, high salt in modern diet is reverse of nature. Nature has bestowed us with kidneys which should get less sodium and more potassium, because our ancestors in jungles, when they used to live, they used to take fruits, berries, vegetable fruits, which contain more potassium. They don't contain salt. So we have done exactly the reverse. We load our kidneys with too much salt, and we take out the potassium. We are taking less fruits. So kidneys can't handle too much. So increased fluid will increased sodium will lead to increased fluid, subsequently increased weight. And TOD means target organ damage. That all the blood pressure, hypertension is a syndrome. It hits all the organs. जहाँ पे blood vessel जा रही है, उस organ को, and body, all organs have blood vessels. So it is hitting all the organs. It is hitting brain. It is hitting retina in the eye. It is hitting kidney. It is hitting heart. It is hitting the lower limbs, peripheral arterial disease. So there is increased fluid, increased weight, increased organ damage. So as far as salt is concerned, in US, they consume around 10.7 grams per person per day, which is almost double of what is recommended. Recommended is only 5.8 grams per day. And in pre-hypertension patient, that means if you are in a gray zone, BP अगर 137/85 है, 87 है, तो तो आपको 3.7 grams ही लेना. You have to take preventive precautions straight away. So even if you are not a hypertensive, you have not started medication, just do this lifestyle. Exercise, eat healthy, decrease salt. So one more point here, that as far as salt, 10.7 gram means 2 TSL and 5.8 means 1 TSL. So 1 चम्मच से ज्यादा नमक नहीं जाना चाहिए, 5 ग्राम से ज्यादा. और प्री हाइपरटेंसिव अगर आप बॉर्डरलाइन जोन में है तो क्वार्टर स्पून 0.75 of a chammach should go into your daily diet. Dietary salt reduction by even 3 grams per day, that is if you are coming from 10 to 7 or 7 to 4 or 5 to 2, can decrease the annual cases of heart attack by 1 lakh. This is only the US data. Stroke and paralysis by 50,000, heart attack by 75,000, deaths by 75,000. So that stimulation of a system that we call medically as the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, that gets minimized once you are not taking excess salt. And that puts our heart, our kidney at low risk of fibrosis. Salt causes fibrosis. जहाँ muscle होना चाहिए वहाँ fibrous tissue जमा हो जाता है. Stiffening होती है. Heart की relaxation नहीं होता. So that gets alleviated once you are not taking excess salt, and increases the nerve stimulation. So what do we do? A young patient has a blood pressure problem, he has headache and all the symptoms that I have mentioned, and then now he wants help. What do we do? So the office and clinic BP measurement is to be done. So we do, once somebody comes to me for treatment, I make him rest for 5 minutes, be comfortable. If you come by staircase, then take another 5 minutes rest. Let it be 10 minutes rest. Seat in a chair, back rested, arm at the level of heart. Measure blood pressure twice in both the limbs at 5 minutes interval. पहले एक आर्म में किया, फिर वेट किया, फिर दूसरे आर्म में किया. Avoid tobacco, caffeine 30 minutes before. So we have to ask this question to the patient. You should not have taken anything. Somebody has smoked a cigarette or taken a caffeine. Then we'll ask him to wait for half an hour and come back maybe next day. Measure BP in both arms. And standing BP also to be checked in case of elderly, because elderly on standing up may have fallen blood pressure, which is postural hypotension, which we call it. And the only issue in the clinic blood pressure monitoring is white coat hypertension. Somebody sees me, I've had a patient comes to my OPD and he sees me as a doctor. वो कहते हैं मेरा जी घबराहट होती है, आपको देख के मेरा blood pressure बढ़ जाता है. So what do we do to white coat and hypertension? There's another term called as masked hypertension. Some people who are brave enough in front of me have a much lesser blood pressure and normal blood pressure in front of me, but in their everyday life, once they go home or they start working, playing with their kids or even exercising, they have a high blood pressure. This is called as masked hypertension. This is exactly the reverse of white coat hypertension. That BP is normal in clinic, but increased during activity at home or in routine. So we do automated office BP. There is a term called as where we ask the patient either to measure the blood pressure at home. That is what I most of the times do. I ask them to get a digital instrument and take a couple of readings per day for the next 14 days and then come back. In US or in Western countries, they have another room where the doctor doesn't go. They are given a digital instrument. The attendant is given a digital instrument. He takes the BP of the patient in another room in 5-10 minutes intervals, 2-3 readings, and then shows it to the doctor. That has been also shown to decrease the BP by 15/5 millimeter mercury per patient. So this is the preferred method. It minimizes the white coat hypertension and lowers BP by 15/10. Now, home BP measurement, as I have already said, twice, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening for 3 to 7 days consecutively. If the home BP is more than 135/85 in the normal serene environment of home, then it will classify as hypertension. Now, ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, I told you, this is the most important novel method of doing, and it unmasks both the masked hypertension, the white coat hypertension, and other issues like a diabetic hypertension or a chronic kidney hypertension, where the office readings may be totally different. So it is an automated measurement, 24 to 48 hours. We keep this just like they say, most of you must be knowing about Holter examinations of the heart, continuous ECG recording of the heart for 24 hours. Similarly, this is the continuous blood pressure monitoring for 24 to 48 hours. And it measures the out of office BP. If it is more than 135/85, then you will qualify as a hypertension. Because if on ambulation at a serene environment of home, you are having a BP of more than 135/85, then there is some issue. And especially when the night time, that is more important. If there is no night dip, रात को नहीं गिरा blood pressure रात को भी 120/70 से ऊपर, that means you have a hypertension. and the 24 hours average blood pressure if it is more than 135. So take two measurement. It takes 2 measurements per hour, total at least 14. In night hours, it takes a lesser fever readings. In day hours, it takes continuously every 30 minutes. So 14 or more readings are taken and then titrated. So as per US Task Force, it is the best method of diagnosing hypertension. It prevents unnecessary treatment of many patients of high white coat hypertension. मतलब मेरे सामने किसी का 160/95 आ गया, I cannot start medicine. I asked him to measure it at home or put him to ABPM. If ABPM says नहीं घर पे तो ठीक है, तो आपके सामने ही पड़ गया, then he escapes treatment. Then I don't need to do it. It is a powerful cardiovascular risk predictor, this ABPM. अगर ABPM में रात का blood pressure more than 120 है या average more than 135/85 है, then you are at cardiovascular disease risk. We are discussing cardiac wellness also today on this topic. So this is how this hypertension, stress, and cardiovascular wellness are linked. So use ABPM only if blood pressure is less than 180/110. It is these patients where you have a confusion. More than 180/110, you don't need ABPM. And this ABPM prevents undertreatment of masked hypertension and diabetes, kidney disease. It helps us for understanding our patients and prevents us aggravating treatment in patients with orthostatic. In elderly, sometimes BP falls excessively in home. We may not know that. We keep on increasing the drugs. So once you have an arterial blood pressure monitoring, we'll come to know that in the night hours, the BP is low, so we need not lower the BP excessively. So hypertension-related atherosclerosis can lead to, this is the problem that hypertension can cause: heart failure, heart attacks, aneurysms or abnormal bulge in the wall of an artery that can burst the aorta, kidney failure, stroke, amputation, and hypertensive retinopathies, that is eye issues which can lead to blindness. Heart risk and blood pressure. Increased blood pressure leads to increased heart risk, especially in males more than 55 and females more than 65. Heart diseases associated are arrhythmias, that is abnormal beating of the heart. SCD means sudden cardiac death, heart failure, cardiac stiffness, acute pulmonary edema, cardiomyopathies, and premature CAD in the family. That means before 45 years, people tend to have heart attacks. Obesity, motapa, and diabetes. The other causes of hypertension are secondary hypertension. Secondary hypertension is due to some other diseases, not genetic, like kidney disease, adrenal disease, Cushing's, hypothyroidism, thyroid illnesses, pheochromocytoma, or a disease called as coarctation of the aorta. So these are the tests that how we can decipher. We'll do an ECG to see hypertrophy of the heart, or we see the neck vessels of the heart, or we measure the kidney values, the creatinine, albumin. Established blood pressure leading to target organ damage can cause brain strokes. It can cause bleed. Heart diseases I've already mentioned. It can cause peripheral arterial disease, retinopathy in eyes, or erectile dysfunction. These are the list of investigations that we advise for patients where we are sure that the patient does not have only stress, he has some genuine heart disease, genuine hypertension. So we do fasting lipid profile. There's a cholesterol, electrolytes, fasting blood sugar, kidney tests, spot urine analysis, ECG, echo, body mass index examination, homocysteine, carotid intima media, that is the neck vessel thickness, kidney Doppler, CT coronary calcium score. The coronary arteries, the heart arteries are seen for calcium, how much calcium, because that calcium will put that patient at risk for a future heart disease. We do a TMT, thyroid evaluation, a urine catecholamine test, or a urine test, urine test. There's a calculator that I use in my patients for all people like us to just know. Somebody comes to the OPD and asks, Doctor, मुझे cardiac, मुझे थोड़ा blood pressure है, मुझे heart attack का कितना खतरा है? मुझे आने वाले 10 साल, 20 साल, 30 साल में heart attack का क्या खतरा है? So we do this. This is an atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease calculator. Ask CVD calculator. It gives us in percentage. Less than 5%, 5 to 7.5%, 7.5 to 20, and more than 20. If you are more than 20, then you are on the wrong zone. If it is 7.5 to 20, then you are in the gray zone. So what we see: current age of the patient, sex, male or female, race, systolic or diastolic blood pressure, total cholesterol of the patient, HDL, LDL, history of diabetes, smoking, whether he's doing smoking, whether he has hypertension, or whether he's already on some statin. Statin means lipid lowering drug, जिससे cholesterol कम हो, or aspirin. So we see all these things, and then we scan. Yes, this is your percentage. This is your Ask VD calculator. It is available on Google also. You can just see your, once you do all these tests, then you can go on Google and see your risks. If you are in the gray zone or maybe more than 20%, then you are in for some trouble in the coming years. So lowering systolic blood pressure cuts heart health risk. So target is 120 if we have to avoid heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. We should not ignore white coat hypertension. Salt, as I said, 3/4, 3/4 of a teaspoonful in a day. We have to cope with stress, good sleep in the night with 90 minutes of slow wave sleep. Nocturnal dip has to be there. 7 to 8 hours sleep at night is recommended. Otherwise, we land with that call center syndrome where the people are working from 7 p.m. till 4 a.m. in the morning. And then you have all kinds of mishmash, all health issues. Hypertension is there, cholesterol is deranged, blood pressure, sugars are not going haywire, you have put on weight, you are obese, you have eaten at the wrong time, insulin levels are very high. So, and they are very young patients. They're patients between 25 and 35 years of age group, BPO center employees. So coming to social, psychosocial stress, younger age group, in brief, stress releases adrenaline and cortisol from our bodies. These are the fight and flight hormones. You see a tiger in a jungle, your body will react different. So it will start increasing adrenaline and cortisol suddenly into the bloodstream. Your BP will go up. It will go 160, 170. That doesn't mean you are a hypertensive. That is what is happening to the call center BPO employees and young people these days. They are under performance stress. They have to perform in front of their boss. So they have a 24-hour surge of these hormones. Others are psychosocial factors, occupational factors, low socioeconomic level. As I said, last 4 decades, the lower sections of the society in Asia and Africa have been involved. Some are race related. In blacks in US, there's a slightly higher propensity of stress and hypertension. And duration of stress is also important. It's not only you have a 10 or a 15 days workshop where you're stressed, you will land in hyper. No. But if you have years of hard work where you have put yourself to excruciating issues, then you will have issues. High marital cohesion, marital discord, that also leads to this problem. So social relationships, isolation lead to this disease. Delayed post-stress BP recovery is seen in isolation. Loneliness. Marriage is a central relationship. So you have to understand, you have to have a very healthy and happy married life. Absence of partner, marital discord, these are also stress related. Mechanisms of stress I have already discussed. There is an increased nerve stimulation and lesser night dip and overactivity. Once you are in stress, you eat more, you smoke more, you take more alcohol. So everything more leads to more BP. And if you are doing the reverse, once you are in stress, exercising, yoga, meditation, it lowers BP. It has been seen that monks in Tibet who meditate regularly, they have very low blood pressure, they have lower heart rates, they have near normal cholesterol levels with in a normal frame, very low body fat. So in spite of the fact that they may not be as much exercising. One is to contribute also because of the cold environment, but second is also due to meditation. Meditation has a very positive benefit on your body. So the treatment briefly, drugs that I will do once you are in the clinic for patients, understand meditation, yoga, brisk walk, jog, run, healthy diet, try to reduce your weight loss, and adequate sleep. In diet, there is a term called as DASH diet, which we advise for hypertension, where whole grains, fruits, vegetables, low-fat dairy products. That means you're not taking excess butter or cheese. You can take skimmed milk or thinned out milk, and you can take some eggs. That's all. And cut back on foods high in saturated fats, trans fats, and cholesterol. Let's say pakode and all non-vegetarian food, which is processed market food. That has to be avoided, which has not been cooked in good fat. Cut on high simple carbohydrates like juices, potatoes, excess rice, carbonated foods, processed foods, and increase fruits like fruits, fish, beans, berries, pistachios, carrots, tomatoes, broccoli, spices, herbs, beet juice, and spinach. So this is a concern most of the patients have. Doctor, hum kya kare? Blood pressure hamara 160, 95, 100. Hum kya kare? So this is the diet. This is the DASH diet. The other diet, which was previously medically advised, was Mediterranean diet, which includes all these above things that I mentioned. cereals, grains, but includes also olive oil and fish and seafood as an adjunct. That also with poultry in moderation, as I've said, no excess poultry, and very rarely red meat. So this is the diet protocol for all these patients. So that is all I have. I would like to take some more questions. Any queries? We have very less time.
Thanks, Dr. Saab, for the deep insight into the subject. It was really very knowledgeable. There are many questions that come up, so I'll take first from Parikshit. Is hypertension inevitable the result of aging?
Sorry, is hypertension invariable?
Inevitable. There is the natural aging.
Just come in, please.
Is it?
Dr. Sir, I request you to kindly close this presentation.
Just.
Hello, sir.
I think.
Yeah, just. Yeah. Is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine now.
It's okay?
Amarati.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. I can take. Yeah. Please. Is hypertension invariable? What else?
Inevitable. The natural result of aging.
I think
It is still echoing. It is echoing a lot. Just.
can I go, Rahul? Should I go? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
See, Mr. Parikshit is asking, is hypertension inevitable? Repeat हो सकता है कि नहीं हो सकता है? The natural result of aging.
Yeah. As far as hypertension is concerned, as I said, 90% of the hypertension is primary or essential in origin. That means it is genetic. There are some genes, around 20 genes, which are responsible for causing hypertension in you. Now, the issue is that if your father had it or your mother had it, normally, once you are above 45 years of age, in a primary hypertension case, your BP will tend to rise with age. In adolescence, it remains around 120. Once you are in your 30s and 40s, you tend to go into the pre-hypertension zone. That means systolic blood pressure of 120 to 140 and diastolic of 80 to 90. Now, it is a process of aging, but not necessarily. You can circumvent or you can change it by a good lifestyle. The diet, the exercise, the meditation, the other things that I mentioned, this will lead to a delay in the process of hypertension by decades. Some blood pressure which has to come, if you have a bad lifestyle and your father has a hypertension issue, you would have had hypertension at 35, 40. But with a good lifestyle, you tend to delay it. You may have the same issue at 55, 60 or beyond. However, by 75 to 80 years of age, 90% of the people worldwide tend to have hypertension. So yes, it is a process of aging. So don't take hypertension as a disease once you are into your 60s and 65s. Hypertension is a process of aging.
Okay. There's one more question from Chandji. How much risk does hypertension increase for a cardiovascular problem?
Hello, Hamid? हाँ? वो कर लिया वो बैठ गया.
Yeah. Dr. Pawan, audible?
वो बैठ. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Pawan.
Yeah, sure.
Chandji पूछ रहे हैं, how much risk does hypertension increase for a cardiovascular problem?
Well, if hypertension is, if you have in patients with pre-hypertension, BP less than 140, then the risk will not be as much. But for every stage if you are in stage 2 or stage 3, that means a systolic blood pressure of more than 160 and a diastolic blood pressure of more than 90, 160 or oblique 90 and above. And if there is stage 3 hypertension, more than 180 by 110, you will be worse off, because it is putting your heart at risk of the afterload, that is the resistance of the on the heart muscles is more. Heart has to pump the blood against a higher pressure to the entire body. So over a process of time, there will be more cardiac stiffness. There will be tendency of a heart failure. There will be tendency of arrhythmias or abnormal rhythm activities in the heart develop. This question is associated with other things like diabetes or lifestyle diseases that you may have. If you are obese, you are a diabetic, you have a bad lipid profile, this problem will get compounded. If you have isolated hypertension, BP 140 or 50 है, डायस्टोलिक 85-90 है, नॉन डायबिटिक है, कोलेस्ट्रॉल नॉर्मल है, वेट गेन नहीं है, तो ऐसे पेशेंट में रिस्क ज्यादा नहीं है. But if it is the other way around, BP is 150 or 140 only, but there are other multitudes of diseases, then there will be an accelerated atherosclerosis. The coronary arteries, the heart vessels will tend to occlude faster over a process of time. There will be more inflammation. Now you see, all the diseases, right from cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, diabetes, or even COVID these days, these are inflammatory disorders. ये सारा inflammation का खेल, body की immunity और inflammation. How much inflammation you are putting by way of your diet, by way of smoking, by way of alcohol, by way of caffeine, by way of carbohydrates, you are inflaming your body. Once you are inflaming your body, and then hypertension is an added risk factor, then you will be in greater trouble. But if you take care of your hypertension, rest of the things are okay, then you are at very less risk in the coming years. That is why I gave one, if you have seen my presentation, I put one ASCVD, atherosclerosis cardiovascular disease predictor, ask CVD risk calculator. That risk calculator is available on Google. You can see there are some criteria. Just enumerate those criteria against your age and you will come to know your long-term heart risk. So long-term heart risk is not dependent upon blood pressure. There are multitudes of other.
Yeah.
Achha, there is a question from Nasir, Dr. Saab. He's saying, is pills the only solution to manage hypertension?
As I already said, in a younger patient, if somebody walks into my clinic, he is 40 or 40, less than 40, 45, no family history, and BP is 160 by 95, then I watch out in all these patients. I ask them either to go for an arterial blood pressure, ambulatory blood pressure monitoring, or I ask them to just take care of their diet, yoga, meditation, get a digital BP instrument, measure morning, evening blood pressure for the next 15 days, give them mild anxiolytic treatment, not hypertensive, pills, only anxiolytic treatment for 15 days. Then after seeing that chart for 15 days, doing some basic tests, then I come to analyze whether this is true essential hypertension or this is only a result of stress. In stage 1 of hypertension, up to 160, you don't have to treat upfront a new patient with pills. In stage 2, 160 to 180 blood pressure, you have to do the ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. If ambulatory blood pressure monitoring is showing a daytime and 24-hour blood pressure of more than 135 by 85 or a nighttime blood pressure of more than 120, then the patient qualifies for pills. Otherwise, simply exercise, weight loss, yoga, meditation, diet restriction. This is the problem. In stage 3, if somebody walks with a blood pressure of 180 by 110, then he goes for pills straight away. There is no point in wasting time. These are genuine hypertensive patients. You should be treating them up.
So he has to assess on what stage he is.
Yes, you have to see whether you are stage 1, young patient, I will let go. But if again somebody comes with a stage 2 and the age is 55, 60, it is quite unlikely that he is getting it because of stress. He is getting it because of his age. So I will be more relaxed. I will start up with pills upfront. More because once you are older, 55, 60, 65, leaving a stage 2 hypertension can predispose to stroke. The patient can develop paralysis, brain hemorrhage, stroke. I don't want that. So it is better to be taking a pill, especially when I told you that these pills are very genuine, very benign. You can take pills for next 40 years without any complications. They're very safe drugs.
There is one more question from Lataji. She's asking, what is the right diet for hypertension treatment? Diet.
As I already mentioned, the DASH diet and the Mediterranean diet. And now Mediterranean diet among us is for those who are taking non-vegetarian foods, which includes small amount of poultry, which involves chicken, fish, and very minimal red meat. Now on top of cereals, grains, fruits, berries, pistachios, dry fruits, and all types of fruits and salads and green leafy vegetables. This was the original DASH diet, dietary action to stop hypertension. That is a full form, dietary action to stop hypertension, DASH diet. So people in West, they used to do dietary action only to stop the systolic hypertension by taking abundant fruits and vegetables and minimize animal fats only to minor poultry, chicken, and avoid red meat.
Red meat should be avoided.
Red meat should be avoided. And on top of diet, as you already know, हम नमक कम खाना है, चीनी कम लेनी है, जूस, आलू, मिठाई, चावल, चीनी ये सब बंद करना है, नमक कम लेना है, and चीनी कम खानी है. Easy sugar is not to be taken. You can take complex carbohydrates like salads. That's not an issue.
ये रॉक सॉल्ट और आयोडाइज्ड सॉल्ट में क्या फर्क है? लोग कहते हैं कि सेंधा नमक अच्छा रहता है बनिस्बत की अगर आप टेबल सॉल्ट की बात कर रहे हो.
Yes, you are right. You are right in that. As far as rock salt is concerned, rock salt is an evaporated form of a salt, which contains less amount of sodium chloride. It contains more of potassium and less of sodium chloride. It is the game is of sodium. As I told you, genetically we are made by God in such a way कि हमारी kidneys sodium नहीं handle कर सकती. They have been made for vegetable foods. They can handle potassium. Now this salt contains more of potassium and less of sodium. So it will not, for taking the same amount of this salt, it will be healthier. Stable salt is entirely sodium chloride. So that is harmful, basically. Not the less dose, as I said, 3.7 grams is okay. But for every extra gram you are taking, you are inviting trouble. As far as tables.
If you remember in Kashmir, we always used to have that Pakistan noon.
Yeah, that Pakistan noon that is a healthy salt. That is a healthy salt. And I will add to that, in addition to Senda Namak, Kala Namak is also equally good. Kala Namak, as you know, it contains more potassium as compared to even Senda Namak. So that is more favorable. Pakistani noon, what you used to say is the added benefit of that noon is regarding the minerals that it also contains. Calcium, magnesium, selenium. Selenium is excellent for heart. Magnesium is excellent for heart. So these micro mineral components of rock salt is much higher. That is why it is more advisable in invalids, in people with some diseases, in young children.
So I think this is a good suggestion for all of us that if we can shift to rock salts again, घर में पीसो, घर में उसको खाओ, तो it will at least decrease the chances of your hypertension. It can decrease the chances of the hypertension. It takes me to a next question about what kind of oil we should use.
Well, there have
cooking oil.
Yeah, finish your question.
So what kind of oils are good? Is it refined? Usually now people say refined is not a good thing for heart. Saturation, fat saturation ज़्यादा रहता है उसमें. Is अपना जो हम सरसों का तेल खाते थे, which is the better oil to have? It is if we have comparison between refined and सरसों का तेल and the olive. Everybody knows the olive oil is the best. What is your recommendation for what kind of a cooking oil should we use?
See, we have to do this on the basis of medical guidelines and on the basis of international evidence that we have. First of all, don't be too much against oils. Basically, all of us have to understand that all the diseases that we confront these days in our society is because of increased carbohydrate intake. It is the carbohydrate which is the killer. Fat is not the killer. So our diet should shift. जो हम बहुत ज़्यादा बत खाते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा रोटियां खाते हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा easy juices, आलू, processed food, burgers, and fast food खाते हैं. That is a bigger killer. It is not the fats which are the killer. Fats in moderation are good for the body. You are allowed to take 15 grams of oil / fats in a day. That means 3 चम्मच आप ले सकते. Now ये 3 चम्मच किस चीज़ के? If you ask me as a cardiologist, I will advise the patient to take around 50% of sunflower oil, around 20 to 30% if he can afford olive oil. But olive oil is costlier, so we have to adjust for that. And around 20 to 25% for mustard oil. Now, mustard oil is good for the brain, for the nerves. And sunflower oil is good for the heart. Olive oil is excellent for the heart. Having said that, in my experience and on the basis of the international evidence, no single oil has been seen to be so much beneficial or having that benefit from the cardiovascular point of view. More important is to avoid which kind of oil. That is more important. So as far as avoiding is, all kinds of saturated oils are to be avoided. Trans fats are to be avoided. Like घी को अवॉइड करना है. आपने घर में घी बनाया उसमें प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, बट जो आपने फैक्ट्री में हाइड्रोजनेटेड ऑयल से घी बनाया वो ठीक नहीं है. डालडा ठीक नहीं है. वर्का डालडा का घी जो हम बचपन में खाते, दैट्स नॉट गुड. Something that is frozen in the winters in your cabin, even outside the refrigerator, that's not good. That is doing the same thing to your arteries. That is getting clogging your arteries. Once you are taking a Haldiram's or bhujia or samosa and kachori and all that, they are all trans fats. They are using that oil again and again. By the time they fry it fifth time, those oils get oxidized. They become trans fats. They are extremely bad. Body does not have a mechanism to deal with trans fats. So they get lodged into the arteries of the heart. They subsequently cause blockages. And then we need to put stents for that. Okay. So avoid trans fats, avoid saturated fats, dalda and all that. Avoid outside food. You must have seen your grandfather, your grandmother taking only ghar ka khana. So ghar ka khana was always good. Because you don't know, the other person is not, he has to sell his product. He will put salt, he will put pepper, he will put oil. Because he has to make it palatable for everyone. लोगों को खाना है, टेस्ट तो होना चाहिए ना. टेस्ट किससे आए? So because of the taste, my children also at times eating kurkure, eating lays, eating nachos. They are not good. Now at their age it is excusable, not at my age or your age or somebody who is elder to us. We have to understand this, what not to eat. Don't be paranoid about oil. Be paranoid about what not to eat. Okay. Rest of all the things are okay. आप refined खाओ, आप olive खाओ, आप सफोला खाओ. No issues. कोई भी खाओ, किसी भी composition में खाओ. You may not be affordable because oils are costlier. We have to understand. But आप क्या नहीं खाओ, वो understand करना है.
Carbohydrates to be avoided.
Carbohydrates is to be avoided. Yeah.
Okay, it takes us to another question. Mr. Archana ji is asking, I had one really high reading, but the rest were good. Which category does it place me in?
See, I must know her age. If she is in the age group of 45 and below, I will put her on blood pressure monitoring, give her mild anxiolytics if required. Otherwise, if the blood pressure is below 140/90, I don't need to do anything. She has to do lifestyle modification, yoga, weight loss, meditation, and good fruit diet. As I said, DASH diet already, good amount of fruits, vegetables, lean chicken, marinated fish, chicken she can take, and egg white she can take. So she continue with this diet, minimize salt, go down to only half a chammach of salt per day, and things should be okay. If the BP continues more than 150/90, then she will need an ambulatory blood pressure monitoring. If ambulatory blood pressure monitoring averaging over 24 hours is showing more than 135/85, she qualifies for medication.
और मटन कितना खाना चाहिए सर हफ्ते में?
As I already said, Mediterranean diet does not ask us to take red meat in excess. Red meat as such is not good for the body because it contains good amount of saturated fats that I have just discussed. But having said that, occasional red meat is allowed. You can take every 15 days, एक या दो पीस आपने खाए रोगन जोश उससे कुछ नहीं. ठीक है? And preferably whenever you are asking your kasai, he should be just chopping off the fat off from that as much as you can minimize. And oil's consumption should be less. Don't cook it in too much of oil. If you are taking once or twice a month, that is not going to be a problem. Generally, these advices are for Western people and for Middle East, where people take beef, which is very rich in saturated fats. Since we are not beef eaters and we take lean red meat, and if we have taken fat off it, once or twice a month should not.
Not more than that. It should be avoided. Just twice.
How reliable are home electronic BP machines?
Yeah.
ये जो electronic BP, what to use? How reliable are these?
Well, as far as the electronic BP machines are concerned, they are reliable. I use of, there are two companies, ideally I should not mention, Omron and Citizen. These are the two companies which are the best out of the lot. I have a Citizen machine for my clinic also, I have two of them. And generally they calibrate well with the mercury manometer. The difference is not more than 10 millimeter. So for a reading of say 157 by 97, you should be reading it as something like a 147 oblique 88 89. You have to minimize. मतलब 5-10 यूनिट आपको दोनों में कम करना, ऐसा जनरली होता है. But we basically use these instruments as an emergency. किसी पेशेंट का 180 200 घर है, कम से कम घर में कुछ तो देख लेते ना. By the time he comes to clinic, he will take a couple of tablets or inform me over phone that my BP has gone up to 180 if he lives half an hour away or 1 hour. So it is advisable, and they are perfectly reliable, 90% reliance. These are very good gadgets now. They were previously, around a decade ago, they were very poor instruments, but they are much better.
पर जो ये मरकरी वाला सर
So
है,
there's another question from Ashi. Yeah, Pankaj ji, आप बताइए.
ये पूछ रहा था, ये जो बीपी मशीन की बात करूं, जो मरकरी वाला है, that is because there is a feeling that electronic वाला is not accurate, but जो
नहीं, that is what I said. Mercury wala will electronic will read at least 5 to 7, maximum 10 units more than a mercury. So once you get a digital reading, minimize it by 7-8 units, both on the systolic as well as the diastolic front. That more or less will corroborate with your mercury. In my case, I get all the instruments of my patients to my clinic, the digital instruments. My assistant calibrates. हर एक machine का वो error देख लेता है, किसमें कितना है, 7 unit, 8 unit, 10 unit. उनको बोल देते हैं हम कि we have checked it from mercury. This is your error. You minimize it at home and then read it accordingly.
Okay. So Ashish ji पूछ रहे हैं, which oil do you recommend for a healthy heart, and what should be the maximum daily intake?
I have already answered this question. Maximum daily intake is 15 ml, and my distribution is 50 for sunflower oil, 30 for olive, and 20 to 25% for mustard.
So there is a question from Ms. Chavi. He's asking that does obesity have direct relationship with hypertension and cardiac wellness?
Yes. Obesity, we have to first of all understand what obesity is. A body mass index of more than 30 is obesity. Now, once you have a BMI of more than 30, you qualify for metabolic syndrome if you have other criteria. Once you have metabolic syndrome, the blood pressure will rise. International studies have shown a BP will rise by more than 5 millimeter of mercury for every 8 to 10 units increase in weight. So if you are supposed to be 67 and you are 78 today, your BP will rise 5 millimeter mercury. Once you start losing, the BP will also get adjusted accordingly. So although in 2013 there were some studies which have shown that even after weight loss the BP persisted like that. But if you have a diabetes and associated illnesses along with obesity, you will benefit if you lose weight. You will definitely benefit if you lose 8 to 10 kg weight. Your BP will fall by 5 units. And associated cardiac wellness. So you see, this is all inflammation. These are pro-inflammatory. If the blood pressure, if the blood is hitting the wall with a higher pressure, it will cause more inflammation. If it is not doing with the same, there will be less inflammation of the coronary arteries. So the chances of a plaque rupture का मतलब होता है कि हमारी आर्टरी में हमेशा हार्ट में ब्लॉकेजेस नहीं होते, छोटे मोटे होते हैं, 30%, 20%, जो हम एंजियोग्राफी में भी पिक नहीं करते. I do angiograms, I say normal coronaries, I send them home, but they may have 30% plaques, which my naked eyes cannot see. Now these plaques, which are 30%, with a high blood pressure, once the BP hits these plaques, they rupture. Once they rupture, they cause clotting or obstruction in the arteries, and then we need to place stents in these. So I will advise not to take care of weight. Once you take care of weight, diet, meditation, your BP, treatment, drug requirement, pill burden will significantly.
Okay. So this is from Ashok ji. He's 64 years of age, vegetarian, and BP is under control with telmisartan. His usual pulse is around 65 to 70 per minute. Occasionally, he suffers from irregularity in pulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, and face some blowing beats, bringing dysplegia and lower spirit. He consulted a physician. He takes beta tablet extra for a fortnight and for around 1 or 2 months, and the trouble gets repeated. He usually takes a dinner by 6:30. So he wants your further advice on this.
Well, see, first of all, you have to understand what kind of an rhythm abnormality it is. So we have to get a baseline ECG in this patient. So Baseline ECG will tell us whether it is the benign arrhythmia, which I've already mentioned, atrial fibrillation, or whether there is any malignant ventricular arrhythmia, any arrhythmia which can put you at a higher risk. So we should do an ECG, we should do an echo examination of this patient, and we should do a Holter examination. Holter examination is 24-hour ECG monitoring of the heart. So we come to know how many beats, abnormal beats are there on a 24-hour basis the patient is having. So after having done that, if BP is normal, telmisartan is a good salt for him, okay, already. And a beta blocker we would add. If the echo is normal, that means his heart formulation is normal. Heart ke valves ya heart ke muscles mein koi kharabi nahi hai. We can add a beta blocker, and he should take continuous beta blocker because that will suppress the abnormal activity of the heart. But this is only advisable when the heart is normal functioning. Once you have shown that echo और Holter अगर normal है, ज़्यादा arrhythmias नहीं है, heart की बनावट ठीक है, then you can take a beta blocker, even lifelong. They don't have any long-term side effects. You can take a beta blocker that will decrease the number of abnormal activities of the heart. But you have to go through the basic protocol. Don't take it as just कि abnormal beat 2-4 हो रही. This could be a prelude to even a coronary artery disease. The heart may not be getting intermittently supply also properly in some times, and there may be some abnormal ectopic activity. So it needs the comprehensive package that we have to do an ECG, echo, and Holter, and then we have to advise. At present, telmisartan and beta blocker should be okay.
There is a question from Mr. PM. Little bigger question. He's saying, sir, my wife, 72, is type 2 diabetic patient from about 28 years. At present, she takes Glycomed GP 2/4 in the morning, empty stomach, 15 minutes before breakfast, and Glavasmet 50/1000 after dinner. Her both legs have swelling, and for the past many years, her BP2 is on higher side, for which she takes Telmastran 40 plus Amlodipine 5 mg. Combination through she takes 3 chapatis in the evening. She cannot walk too much. Please advise.
Well, it is very clear this patient has a diabetes, this patient has a hypertension, and I presume diabetes is well controlled, so he has not mentioned the sugar values. If diabetes is well controlled in this patient, they can continue with the oral hypoglycemic drugs that they are taking. As regarding hypertension, the choice of the drugs is wrong. Telmisartan is okay, but amlodipine is not wrong. Amlodipine in 5 to 10% of patients can cause pedal edema. It can cause swelling in both the limbs. So her treatment,
also.
Amlodipine has to be removed from the treatment. Amlodipine, it is a side effect of amlodipine therapy. The drug has to be optimized. Whosoever is looking after, they can go back to their physician and minimize and remove amlodipine from today itself from the treatment. Diet, she is okay if she's saying 2 to 3 chapatis in the morning, evening, that is okay. I will not comment on that. And if BP is controlled, telmisartan can be combined with a low dose diuretic. We use chlorthalidone, which is an excellent 24-hour diuretic, which optimizes blood pressure over a 24-hour duration. I will advise that she can be on telmisartan with chlorthalidone combination instead of amlodipine. So she should knock out amlodipine. I think that is the solution to that problem.
I hope Rana Sahab has heard your suggestion, and I hope he will definitely work on it and check with his doctor also. I am sure he will be having some doctor there in Jammu from which he can check and at least try to take off those medicines which you have advised him to. There is one more question from Mr. Sanjeev Bhatt. What if systolic reading is double than the diastolic reading to a 65-year-old male hypertensive? What are the possible reasons and precautions to be taken?
Yes, it's a very excellent question. It's a very good question. See, for every 65-year-old, as I've already mentioned in my presentation, there's a term called as isolated systolic hypertension. That means ऊपर वाला blood pressure बढ़ता है, नीचे वाला blood pressure नहीं बढ़ता. वो 90 रहता है, 90 से 80, 70, 60 elderly में होता है. This is because of the stiffening of the aorta. The aorta, which is the blood carrying conduit from the heart to the different organs of the body, gets stiffened with age. there is calcium deposition. Once there is calcium deposition, no elastic recoil occurs. Once no elastic recoil occurs during diastole, the diastole tends to get lower, the systole tends to get higher. Now, what are the issues with these patients? Now, if the patient, they have not mentioned the blood pressure, double means, say, I presume it is something like 180/90 or 160/80. Now, what happens? Now, when these patients have a high systolic blood pressure, the stroke risk increases in these patients because systolic blood pressure will increase the stroke, that is a brain hemorrhage, brain stroke का risk इस patient में ज़्यादा होगा, जो होता है 60-65 age के. So we have to be careful. We have to lower the systolic blood pressure. So whosoever they are showing, their doctor has to work on this, whether they use an ACE inhibitor or preferably a diuretic. Again, chlorthalidone can be used for this one. However, more importantly, the diastolic blood pressure has to be kept low, like 70 or 80. But not lower than that. If the diastolic blood pressure falls further, मान लीजिए नीचे वाला blood pressure जो वैसे ही normal था, 80 था, down हो गया, 60 हो गया, 55 हो गया, then there can be a cardiac issue. Why? Because the coronary filling occurs during diastole. पूरी body को supply मिलती है systole में, but heart को खुद को supply मिलती है diastole में. So if you are lowering the diastolic blood pressure further, then heart may not get as much supply. That leads to subendocardial ischemia, which there's a medical term called as subendocardial ischemia. These patients are at risk of subendocardial ischemia. There was a term called as J effect. I cannot go into that as a medical term. J effect means once you are lowering the diastolic blood pressure too much, you may put the elderly in trouble for a future cardiac event. Because the perfusion to the heart occurs during diastole only. तो उनके लिए मैसेज ये है कि भाई सिस्टोलिक ब्लड प्रेशर कम करो, डायस्टोलिक ब्लड प्रेशर को भी ज्यादा गिरने मत दो, 70 तक रखो, और जो पल्स प्रेशर है, जो इन्होंने डबलिंग कहा है, दोनों के बीच का गैप, वो बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. तो that is the advice for his physician. So try to get the upper wala blood pressure up to 140, keep the lower wala between 60 and 70, and avoid the further lowering of the diastolic blood pressure.
So there's another question from Shimpersi. The function of next.
I'm not getting
the function of next pulse.
Your voice is cracking.
Is it to be continued after the patient has taken it for almost an year?
What is the function of?
Nexto pulse plus.
Hello. Nexito plus, I think it is. Nexito plus you are seeing.
Yeah.
Nexto plus is an anxiolytic medication. It is a combination of escitalopram and clonazepam. These are anxiolytic drugs which are offered to those patients where we don't want to put blood pressure medication, who are in the stage 1 of hypertension, where we per se feel that the panic or the anxiety or the stress is the cause of blood pressure. So for 15 days, we put these patients on mild anxiolytics and try to correct their lifestyle. And then see, majority of the readings, if below 140, then these patients would need not be on drugs and they can take care with their good lives. This drug largely does not have any side effects except for sedation. Some patients have excessive sedation and daytime sleepiness. So in that case, the dose needs to be titrated or optimized.
Okay, is it to be continued after the patient has taken it for almost an year or so?
No, I don't think a patient will need it for a year or so, hypertensive patient. These, as I already said in my presentation, the hypertensive stress episodes are transient. They tend to get corrected within 15, 20, 25 days. After that, patient takes care of his lifestyle because patient learns the lifestyle. Once you have a habit formed in 3 weeks of time, that will tend to remain with you. If you have been running for 3 weeks, it becomes a habit. And then you are a part of that good habit. Then you will not need these medications. हमें ऐसा नहीं करना कि ये 1 साल तक देना, हमें पेशेंट को एजुकेट करना है, महीना भर ये दवाई लो, meanwhile आप लाइफस्टाइल करेक्ट करो and then taper off this medication. After all, every salt is a chemical. It does not have a good effect on the body eventually.
So Ramakrishnan ji, we push that can pure desi ghee replace oil?
As I said, pure homemade ghee is not bad for the heart, but excessive use of any food item is not recommendable. So if you are taking a very small amount of desi ghee, is not going to harm. But moderation and excess is somewhere where Indians lack. They don't understand moderation. If you have seen my presentation, I have written moderate alcohol and severe alcohol. Moderate alcohol will decrease blood pressure. Severe alcohol will cause more hardening of the artery, increase blood pressure. That will be more harmful. So you have to understand, moderation has to be advisable, and small amount of desi ghee is okay, but I think the bulk should be other oils, not desi ghee. Excessive desi ghee, I will not advise.
So Rahulji, you have any more questions? Because
No, I think I'm done with it.
I think it was a really great session with Dr. Pawanji, and he was too much involved, and he had been so much of nice in telling us about everything in minutest details. I'm sure that the viewers would have been benefited out of this session. And if I still, Dr. Zuchi is working with Metro Lajpat Nagar and Metro Noida. If somebody wants to contact,
We have one more question coming in, Pankaj ji.
Haji, please.
If I'm allowed to speak, the question is, I am taking Sartan AM for the last 5 years, but occasionally my blood pressure remains at 140/90. My heartbeat remains at 85 to 90. Stress also, having sleeping problem, not taking enough sleep as required. Please suggest. This is Ajit Kumar.
As I can get from this question, the BP is in the okay zone. Any blood pressure below 140/90 is okay if he is taking Sartan AM. However, the heart rate tends to be is 85/90, which is maybe slightly on the higher side, and the patient is not getting adequate sleep. So I think the anxiety component may be there in this patient, where the heart rate is up and the sleep is not there, although the BP seems to be in the near normal zone. So I will advise this patient for an anxiolytic. Maybe at sleep time they should be taking an alprazolam or a clonazepam for sleep, so that he gets an uninterrupted 7-hour sleep in the night. He gets that nocturnal dip where the blood pressure tends to fall in the night. He wakes up fresh in the morning. I hope that will take care of his blood pressure and anxiety problem. Having said that, again, if after correction of sleep, his BP tends to be on the slightly higher side, his heart rate tends to be on the slightly higher side, I will advise a very low dose beta blocker, like a Nebivolol, Nebicard, 2.5 or 5 mg once a day. That will take care of the blood pressure as well as the heart rate.
Yeah. So, Dr. Pawan, one more question is there. People nowadays in this COVID time do a lot of exercise and with mask on. So, how does it impact? Is it dangerous? Mask and doing exercise?
See, you must have already heard through media also so many cases. One of the elite members of our community, Dr. Ashish, we lost him because of this reason only. He was exercising, came home, and suddenly collapsed. Now you see, as a cardiologist, I can say we do regular TMTs on our patients, treadmill tests. The first thing that we do when we start TMT, we take off the mask. We have put this as a protocol in our TMT. So whenever you are exercising, put the mask off, or use a very thin mask which does not interfere with the oxygen intake of your body. Any kind of desaturation, because once you are exercising, you are removing a lot of calories from the body. Oxygen demand increases 3 to 5 times during the exercise. 3 to 5 times. That means जितना हम अभी oxygen लेते हैं, इससे 5 times हमें oxygen चाहिए exercise के time. And you are doing exactly the reverse. You are not giving adequate oxygen to the body. So in that situation, there can be lesser blood to the heart, lesser blood to the brain, which can cause arrhythmias, sudden collapse. Adversely, it can cause some arrhythmias, clot formation in the heart, going to the brain, stroke, or any blood pressure issues, brain hemorrhage, or any exacerbated blood pressure. Once oxygen saturation falls, the counter regulatory mechanism, body का जो regulatory mechanism होता है, जैसे रात को obstructive sleep apnea होता है, ऑक्सीजन ठीक नहीं मिलता है, दिन के टाइम बीपी बढ़ता है. वैसे जब एक्सरसाइज आप करेंगे, ऑक्सीजन नहीं देंगे, तो बीपी बढ़ेगा. These patients may tend to have an increased blood pressure and secondary. So we should take care of our oxygen requirement. Preferably, that is why you should exercise early morning when not many people are around in COVID times, so that you don't expose yourself also.
Thanks a lot.
I hope the questions, there are no further questions.
No, fine. So no more questions. Thanks, Dr. Saab.
Thank you.
So I think thank Dr. Saab for giving his time to us, for the community and for the viewers. And I'm sure that viewers would be, whatever their queries were, whatever their research was, they have been cleared by now. So Dr. Saab say, if somebody wants to take some professional advice, Dr. Saab is available at Metro Lajpat Nagar and Metro Noida. You can check it on the website and can get in touch with Dr. Saab.
My pleasure. It was nice talking to you guys.
Thanks, Dr. Saab, for the
Thank
insight.
you. It was nice talking to you. It's my pleasure. I'm highly thankful that I have been given this time to take care and of my community and at large, all the populace. All questions are welcome. Will be, I think, in future also we'll conduct such seminars. Pleasure.
Thanks, audience, for watching it. Namaskar. This is Zara Initiative. We'll again meet next week, Sunday, same time, with one more doctor for some major topics. Thanks.